This podcast is intended for mature audiences and contains adult language and subject matter. Listeners, please be advised.
Welcome, everybody, to our fourth episode of Drinking with Your Ex.
I am Blake Thompson, calling from Austin, Texas.
You're not calling, you were sitting here, but that's all right. I am Bonnie Neal, sitting in Austin, Texas.
We are getting ready to have another wonderful episode of Drinking with Your Ex.
And other bad ideas.
As you know, we have 3 rules for this podcast.
Dun, 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 dun.
And also, the extra rule, we always start off with an alcoholic beverage and a sponsor. Tonight's sponsor is Hell-Cat Maggie, coming out of 5 Points in Manhattan, as Bonnie is having a lovely hot toddy this evening because it is a wonderful 27 degrees with a 12-degree wind chill in Austin. And Blake is partaking in 512 Brewing, their illustrious IPA.
Yes, excellent.
Good.
So thank you, Whiskey and Beer, for all of the many excellent life choices you have helped us make throughout the time. Our second rule of this podcast is that we will both introduce each other, nothing like edge play and having your ex introduce you to the world. And then the third rule is
the wonderful, uncomfortable question.
Oh my God.
We each could ask each other an uncomfortable question that the other has to answer.
Must answer.
No, there's no takebacks. There's no saying, next question, please.
And
Sorry.
If you heard
have
any of
to
these
answer.
before, there's no bullshit answering out because, this is your ex. They kind of know when you're lying. They figured that out. Tonight's topic is something that we're kind of bringing in a little bit lighter to you guys. Tonight's topic is flirting. How to do it, when to do it badly, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And when not to do it, and when to go, okay, was this a good idea? Was this a bad idea? Do I need to gnaw my leg off tomorrow morning?
Oh, yeah. And the ways in which we have both seen each other flirt and, reasonable sportcaster level commentary on that particular phenomenon.
Exactly, because everybody knows in the world of dating, no matter what age, especially when you're over 40, flirting is a contact sport.
Oh, my God. Blood sport, one might say it really at times, but, only consensually.
And as you know, Bonnie is starting to become a world champion at this, avoiding the introduction.
Oh, my God. All right. I didn't do it this time.
Well, you're trying.
I'm trying. Well, you go first because I know you've been sitting on one and I.
I haven't just been sitting on one. I was actually riding one on the plane when I was flying back here.
Oh, my. All right.
Yeah. So everyone, my ex, Bonnie Neal, devourer of knowledge and also destroyer of the inopportune trivia night teams in local bars.
That's not bad. I like that. It's true.
Yeah.
Overly competitive about trivia. Word represent. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Blake Thompson, the grown man, kind of stared down the barrel at 50, who sat here and jumped up and down in sheer joy that the friend of his is going to give him a custom-made Sith Lord robe that he can now wear to cosplay Comic-Cons out there. Ladies and gentlemen, the tallest, weirdest Santa-flavored nerd you'll ever see.
You're just jealous because I will look fabulous in a Sith robe walking around with all 6.5 feet tall of me because everyone loves to see what's under a Sith Lord. Come to the dark side. I have cookies.
Well, and that launches us very well into the flirting conversation. So I'm going to just straight up say this. I got very little ego around it. Blake is an accomplished flirt. I will say this man has some amazing freaking game when it comes to flirting. I'd like to say, it's easy to say that your prowess, one might say, with flirting came about from all of your years bouncing and working in nightclubs. I mean, it didn't hurt.
It did not hurt.
When I met you, you had a strong flirt game. Really. He, for all 6'5" of him, he always has this really kind of neat way of putting his hands down, and doing a little like Marilyn Monroe coquettish with the shoulders forward, and then twinkling at you. He's got a twinkle thing that he does,
And that's the secret, everyone. Sit there, flirt with confidence, unleash the inner you. You know you want to. Because you can sit there and make fantastic eye contact with somebody. And that's one of the first keys to flirting.
True. Yeah, it took me a while to realize this. I will say New York was a little detrimental on my flirting game in that, in New York, direct eye contact is an act of overt aggression, and this is how people get shot and into fights on subways. I've not gotten shot, but I've definitely gotten into some serious fights on subways. So I've had to dial back my piercing stare of a maniac game, but yes, it is all about eye contact. I would not say that that's my strongest suit.
Starting off with eye contact, starting off with a smile, starting off with a disarming compliment.
Well, we were kind of running through some of your good lines, right? As somebody who's worked in the bar industry for a while, you've heard a lot of lines.
After being in the bar industry for the better part of 20 years, I have heard the good, the bad, and the fugly.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, there's
pickup lines from everyone under the sun, not just guys. Men, talk to your female friends, please.
Please, for your own safety and for public health reasons.
Yes, like if you have any single female friends, go talk to them. I can't emphasize that enough. Go talk to them and find out what they don't like. They will give you great pointers.
I feel like it's reasonable to say kind of across the board, once you're out of high school come on lines that involve some sort of rhyme or pun, we should just let those go, hey baby, is your daddy a thief? Because he stole the stars from the sky and put it in your eye. No, stop, please stop.
Oh my God, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? My favorite response for that is just, no, I was plummeting to hell and I was going home.
Nice.
That was probably my favorite response to that line.
The thing is that's like competitively clever, and that's going to keep them sticking there, right? Because they're like, oh, she's feisty, and you're like, God,
saucy.
Go away. Come on lines, I don't really like. I think come on lines are bad, right? But I think what is useful and what I probably need to kind of pay a bit more attention to is conversation startup lines, especially with strangers, especially like in bars, or especially like standing in line at the post office. In a neutral public space, how should one approach a attractive member of your particular sexual persuasion and not come off like a creep? Because that's
or a stalking maniac, which there's that fine line where you could be flirting with somebody and realize it's like, wow, I overstepped 15 lines and I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Look at body language, look at facial expressions. Or is the person uncomfortable? Know when to stop.
And know when no. Like, under no circumstances is this an appropriate time to do it, right? Mm-hmm. I've heard some horror stories of women getting approached when they're waiting at a stoplight while jogging. Don't do that. No.
That person is living her own life, going about her day. She is not trying to get laid.
No, and she doesn't want to talk to you. If she has headphones on, leave her be. That is a sign of, I don't want to talk to anyone. Yeah. Please go away.
Sunglasses, headphones, all the things.
Book, just read the signs. And even if you don't want them to, sometimes that sign says stop, go away, beware of dog.
Exactly. Don't sit there and think that her sign must be slippery when wet. Oh,
no.
By the way, that was a pickup line.
Oh, God. Ooh, no.
Yeah, makes you cringe. And also, when you're flirting, and I talk about being yourself, and that's easier said than done. But when you're flirting, don't think about an end game.
Right. So this is some good advice I've heard. So I have some personal flirtation role models, right? One of them being Dolly Parton. That woman flirts with almost every sentence that's out of her mouth, and she is just genius at it. If you ever doubt me, just go back and Google some Dolly Parton interviews, and she flirts with everyone. She flirts with absolutely everyone that she talks to, and it's always something that is easy and fun and very giving, right? I've seen her do this when she's being introduced with someone. She's like, oh my goodness, you are a very good looking man. And that is just, you can't help but smile.
It's like all of a sudden, it's like you get a compliment and then your cheeks get rosy and you feel it's like you get all warm and tingly. Dolly Parton has that magical power. It
is, because there's a way in which you can... So flirting, I think, the commitment is to be very giving with it, right? Flirting should be giving. It should not be about the attainment of a goal. Try to take all of your predator creepiness out of it. Flirting is a give and a take, but it actually starts with the give. Think of it as like a dance step, right? Yeah.
And much like Dolly Parton, like one thing to do is, like, I totally admit it, I make shameless flirt.
You are, yes.
I will also flirt with everybody.
Yes, you do. You do flirt with everybody, male, female, drag queen, non-binary, trans. You are an equal opportunity flirt. It's actually something to see. What he does is, I wish I could just kind of show you guys what it is he does. I don't think he's ever single met a food service person, male or female, that he has not immediately flirted with right off the bat. And all he does is like he sits down and he kind of like puts his hand on like, you know, kind of puts his chin on his hand. Is like, well, hey, how are your night treating you? How are you doing today? Is having a good night, right?
Yeah.
It is twinkle twinkle.
Yeah, it's twinkle twinkle. And also, I never have an end game.
No, honestly, I feel like you say it to let them know you're communicating something. You're like, hey, I like you. I want to be nice. I want to be I am a good table. I am a
like I'm friendly. I'm disarming.
Friendly and disarming.
And that's the thing. And that's the key to it. If I walk up to a cocktail waitress or a bartender, it's like, hey, how's your night going?
Yeah. I would say my go-to line is, so how's the night treating you? Or how's your day been treating you? Right? You know, it's a question of interest that's low bar of entry, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, based on how one fields that back, you can ask follow-up questions, you know.
Even when we're flirting, it could be a salesperson, could be a bartender, could be your coffee guy on the corner. You unconsciously, even if it's not a sexual desire, you're doing it, you're flirting, you're looking for a response.
Well, I'm trying to think, like, I have no idea. I have all these like weird little sayings in my head, and I'm like, I don't know how to like attribute this quote. But what I used to always be told when I was a teenager, so I say, is that flirting is free, right? Flirting is just a free exchange of energy and compliments. It's designed to make both people feel good, and that's it. That is it. It is not a contract. It is not a commitment. It is not a down payment on behavior and services later.
Right.
It is flirting is enough in and of itself. And, you know, read the crowd, read the room. Try not to go into flirting with an agenda.
Yes, do not.
I'm guilty of sometimes of flirting with an agenda. So
it's also don't go in and they're thinking you're a master pickup artist.
Yeah,
because you're not.
That guy's an asshole. Those guys are assholes. Those people are assholes.
They absolutely are. But like when you're going in there for just honest flirting, don't look for an end game. Look for it where you have the opportunity to be nice and kind to another human being that you're interested in.
Right. You know, compliments. Give compliments. Mean them. Right. Make them be genuine. You know, Dolly Parton is like, oh my, you are a very handsome man. You know she means it. Yeah,
and like I just told, like prior to this conversation, before we started recording, I told Bonnie about one of my favorites that I just recently used. It was like, look at you sitting at the bar being all stunning.
That's a good line.
Yeah.
I mean, it does have a lineness to it though, so it can edge into the realm of insincerity.
But it also depends on your body language, your facial expression, how you're doing it.
Right.
Because after that, I walked away.
Aw. All right. The drive-by flirting. I like that.
Yeah. And then later, the conversation started off where I got the drive-by flirting.
Oh, right. And then it becomes
a mutual flirtation, which led to conversation. And the best part about this conversation was nothing happened. Nothing happened at the end of the night.
But you're still remembering it now, and you're still kind of beaming and thinking about it, right? Yes. There's a legacy of good flirting.
Yeah. Like helped her into a cab. And it was just a lovely evening of great conversation. But numbers were exchanged, Facebook friends requested were happening, things of that nature. And that came from flirting. Because it wasn't looking for a miss right now or like, oh my God, I got to do this. No, it was just connecting with another human being.
Well, I will say that the uncontrollable implications of flirting, for me, at least as a female, is something that has led to my really, really bad, slightly really sad flirting game. I'm a little rusty at it, but frankly, I've never been super great at it. Mainly because it always seems like a trap, right? In West Texas, around some of the quality of, we will loosely call them men that I grew up around, and then kind of when it's a predatory sort of machismo kind of thing, flirting is seen as like a green light to do whatever the fuck you want to a girl. And I'm like, and so I just...
Yeah, this is where the misogyny comes into play.
Yeah. That well, she flirted with me, therefore I gang raped her. And you're like, wait a minute.
Wait. Dial it back.
Asking for it, right? That flirting becomes, some sort of consent moment. And, let's dial down the stakes for it, but it's also kind of, recognize that sometimes that's what's at stake when you're approaching a woman who's
Absolutely.
Getting groceries or jogging or listening to her music on the subway.
Standing when you see someone that's going about their daily life.
And if you really just must, if their Dreamweaver is playing in your mind, figure out a real respectful way in which to approach that.
Or sometimes it's like where flirting just happens accidentally, where I remember standing at a bus stop, and a young lady next to me was reading the same book I was reading. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm reading the same book.
Well, that's a conversation starter with
I mean, it's a conversation starter, but it's like, where are you at in the book? How do you like the character? Da 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 da. But it was an opening where I wasn't intruding on that individual's life to get anywhere. It was just for the connection.
Right.
Another one is when you see someone with pets.
Oh, yeah.
When you see someone with pets, compliment their pet. Don't compliment them.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like this is why some people especially have dogs.
Yeah.
Right? Dogs are chick magnets. Dogs are dude magnets, Oh, okay. So speaking of which, I mean, Blake just actually jumped up and down like a girl. You can't see him, but Blake has a thing for corgis.
Well, I have a thing for corgis. I have a thing for little dogs. I love little dogs. I want to be the guy walking around with a little dog, dressing the little dog up in various outfits and whatnot. Bonnie thinks it's creepy and weird and disturbing. I think it's adorable.
Point in case, we're going to go on a little tangent here, is that, okay, so there's something to be said about people who dress their animals in clothing. When you and I first saw each other after about 5 years, you went into a monologue about what you were planning to do to poor innocent corgis. He was going to name them. What were the names?
Rumpus and Tuckus.
Right. And then he was going to stage wedding photos with them. And I was like, okay, Blake.
Anyhow, I have a small flirting story, which is comical because I didn't know who I was flirting with. I walked by, I saw this lovely young woman coming towards me, and she had this beautiful little terrier dressed up in matching boots and a matching parka because it was cold outside in New York.
Like matching her clothes? Okay, or the
parka her outfit matched the dog's outfit.
Oh my.
And it was amazing. So I'm sitting there, I'm carrying on a conversation with her, and he said, oh my God, your dog's so adorable. May I say hi? Asking all the permissions and whatnot. Let me say hi to the dog. And I'm walking by, some guy steps in front of me and goes, dude, that was Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Nice. And you didn't notice because you were in love with
Ladies and gentlemen, I completely did not notice because I was actually in love with the terrier.
Nice. I'm not the best flirt. I'm better at it. I used to misinterpret flirting with interrogation tactics. I will just sort of launch into a series of questions that are designed to get more and more probing and intimate as they go on. And I have been told it does sound like one's being interrogated by the FBI. I mean, I don't know. You mean that you don't find that hot? Come on. Who's into law enforcement role play? But
it's like, yes, what flirting turns into. Is there a light hanging over me? Is there water dripping in the corner? Is someone coming out with a blackjack here in a minute?
I mean, yes. Where that comes from is that I find, this is going to sound so, I can't even imagine how this sounds, but I'm just going to go with it. I personally have found very few men personally interesting, and so usually that blinding light of interrogation comes on when I find them attractive, and I'm like, oh, you just said or did something very interesting. I need you to tell me more. I need to see if my perception of you interesting is accurate. So please, I've got a 20-point questionnaire that I'd like to go through. I'll get you a drink. You want to sit down? Come on, let's talk about this. No. You keep talking. How about this follow-up question?
Much like this podcast, everyone.
Well, I'm just saying that. I know that's what I did for a solid 10 years or so. And to be fair, it's not unattractive in a cute little 18-year-old NYU student. A little bit more,
but as you get older,
piercingly intimidating.
Like when you get into your 40s, shivering with pure terror, going, it's like, I don't know how to answer these questions. I didn't expect there to be a test. It's like, I didn't know this was a job interview. What am I doing? I mean, to quote Van Water, first dates are interviews, but that's beside the point. Oh. This is just flirtation, everyone.
I know I've done that.
Also, one thing about flirtation is be comfortable talking about yourself, because follow-up questions do happen.
Well, and that goes back to you gotta give, right? Like flirting needs to be giving, and that is something I've also not remarkably excelled at. is in offering up my own conversation topics, offering up my own information, right? As one can see in that piercing interrogation, aka I like to think of it as law enforcement role play in my mind. It just makes it nicer.
People pay extra for that.
Yeah, but I understand that you do have to like offer up something for yourself, give something to them to admire or say back to, right?
Go back and forth. It is a give or take.
It is a give or take. It's a dance, really.
Yeah. And sometimes,
when done best,
depending on what speed you're going at, there's no rush.
It's true. There is no rush.
It's a long waltz for all of you. That's a dance move for all you people that don't know.
Well, so back to the timing of things, right? I think timing is important in what you're saying, and that is a more fun thing about dating over 40 is that let's just slow this roll down just a little bit, right? I have seen that there is less predatory, get it to the goal line kind of end of evening flirting that happens. You know, I'm not particularly, you know, I'm never saying never, but generally I'm out of the picking up strange men at bars times of my life, and you know, I'm nothing against that, but I'm past that point in my dating evening. So the idea of spending an evening just talking and flirting with the exchange of digits, right, and the Facebook friending of the next morning, that seems like a very successful flirting endeavor. Nicely done.
No, I agree. And like I felt like I was out of practice until I realized I'm letting me off the chain in the sense of what do I have to lose?
Self-respect, self-dignity. You know, I mean, these are...
Yeah, but as Bonnie is so nice to point out, I'm old. So that confidence level comes up. And so I wouldn't even call it where you have that moment. It's like, honestly, what do I have to lose? I'm about to start a conversation with a human being I'm interested in.
Right.
And it could be standing in line at the post office. It could be at the grocery store, like critiquing what each other's buying. It doesn't have to be creepy. Let yourself be you. And practice being you while you're flirting.
Solid goal. But how do you know that you practicing you and being your flirting isn't some of the absolutely inappropriate crashing and burning flirting we have witnessed with each other and amongst our friends? I know several friends that, my Lord, they make my FBI interrogation flirting technique, let's just call it for what it is, they make that seem kind of subtle and chill.
Yes,
as opposed to the, you know, come on like gangbusters, still over 40, come on like gangbusters and be like, within questions, hey, I think you're really hot, let's go home together.
Wait. How do we get from point A to point B? Your same pickup lines you used when you were 14.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you just run down the bar punching every woman you see in the arm going, I like you. I mean, it might work, it might not. I mean, kudos if it does.
Can that actually ever really work? Let's just follow that particular scenario through, because if it did quote unquote work, I don't know if that's gonna, you know, rule number 1, don't stick your dick in crazy. Rule number 2, if you have to punch her to tell her you like her, chances are good. Probably crazy.
I mean, that's also a two-way street. Bonnie and I are actually students of human nature, where we can smell crazy in the almost all special ways.
Well, I mean, I'm about to, let's be honest about it, takes one to know one, you know?
And some of us, it's Bonnie, but says, don't stick your dick in crazy sometimes. And I'm guilty of this, everyone. Diving into crazy with both feet.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I just attract crazy. I feel like, you know, like comes to like, and we're all a little bit crazy. Only the best people are, except, you know, sometimes you don't want to.
You don't want to sit there and walk around with a billboard going, hi, I was certified.
Well, you know, like red flags. What's my favorite meme? I saw the red flags, but I thought it was a carnival. Sure. Okay. Makes sense. I see how you could have gotten there, but, you know, crazy is just another word for red flags. Just another word for, you know, perhaps not ready for this jelly.
I'm gonna argue that crazy is not an example of red flags. Red flags are like things that you've known from previous experiences in relationships. Where like if you're having a conversation with somebody, then all of a sudden you find out that they don't have the same political stance you do. Red flag.
Right.
You're going through. It's like you're looking at compatibility for a human being while you're flirting.
I mean, I feel like you're being overly generous, counselor, in your real kind of magnanimous and compassionate definition of red flags. I would say there's some other red flags like active alcoholic, current warrants out for his arrest, expired driver's license and he's a driver for Amazon. I'm just saying, there's some other real red flags.
Okay, no, those are real world red flags. You normally don't.
Multiple American Express credit cards not in her name.
Yeah, if you're finding this out during the flirtation process, run everybody.
Right. Oh, so red flags happen. Well, you can find red flags during the flirting process.
Yeah, you can totally find red flags, but if you're having a conversation where it's like, oh my God, does she have a head in her freezer? Oh my God, does he have a toenail collection underneath his bed?
Either of those topics come out in the initial flirtation conversation. Yes. No harm, no foul. Run. Don't. Walk away gently.
I know.
Make no sudden movements.
Like if you're listening to this podcast, more than likely you've listened to a true crime podcast at least one time.
Really? Do you really think those audiences cross over?
If they're listening to us, absolutely.
I feel like, man, okay, we need to up our game a little bit, but sure. If heads and freezers and toenails, although to be fair, I have seen you on a flirting binge where, serial killers come up within the first two topic conversations. I don't know how you do it, but you do it. You laugh. It's true, right?
I am absolutely guilty.
Right?
But it's like, but here's the thing. In this sense, I can smell my own.
Ooh, okay. Elaborate, because that sounded really creepy, especially with the look in your face when you said it.
Well, it's like when you're sitting there and talking about, serial killer conversations come up with the first 2 minutes. It's like you find out, it's like, oh my God, I listened to the same podcast, or oh my God, I read that same book.
Right. Okay.
And then all of a sudden you're sitting there having a really fantastic conversation about Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer. This comes up with...
Like you do.
And listen, if you're not listening to a true crime podcast, everybody's watched a crime drama in here. Everybody's watched an episode of Hannibal. Everybody's watched, I will absolutely generalize this because at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're sitting there looking for something and it's like, ooh, Law and Order marathon. Ooh, Criminal Minds.
So I like where this is going because I feel like we're trying to say is generally as a rule, I say if you're dating under 40, one should not bring up serial killers and true crime usually within the initial flirtation. Or maybe, what don't I? I mean, millennials, you figured out, ladies. But what you're saying is like, as part of flirting is to offer your own interests, right? And you are, a former undercover narcotics officer with a, criminal justice, and forensic psychology.
Let's see.
What are your
my credentials? I have a bachelor's degree in forensic psychology with a minor in criminal justice and police science.
Right. So this is your jam, is in some ways, talking about dismembered body parts in Cleveland. I'm going
to call you out on this. We've actually had these conversations and you've been privy to conversations where these topics come up because they're interesting.
True. And, in my opinion, only the best people we're talking to can really throw down with some true crime, dismembered body parts in Cleveland kind of conversations. That who doesn't like that? It's just, one might say we're slightly weird in that, although to be fair, true crime podcasts and true crime in general.
So I'll sit here and dress my corgis while we're having this conversation.
Okay. So it may be the combination of the true crime and the personified, whatever I've been drinking, of animals. Right. Okay.
We have went all kinds of different directions tonight with this.
Yeah. It's time for the uncomfortable questions. You go first.
Actually, I don't have one yet.
Oh, wow.
Okay, no, I do.
Oh, okay.
All right. It says, you've brought it up a couple times already. What was your worst flirting experience and how badly did you crash and burn?
Oh, God. Oh, God. I'm trying to narrow it down between two of them. There's two that are standing out in my mind. I can get combative, as I know this is somewhat shocking information for everyone to hear. He was a friend of a friend. We were at a party together or coming from a party. And this is the strange thing about me. And I know that this is something that is odd about men that I find attractive and how I find them attractive. And honestly, more accurately, when I find them attractive. Usually what I find attractive is watching men behave very emotionally competent in difficult situations. Let me break that down a little bit. I have enjoyed watching men get very angry and handle their shit, as opposed to throw a temper tantrum, take their anger out on other people. I find there's something incredibly hot to me about seeing a man get aggravated, frustrated, angered, and to watch him be like,
that is hot.
And behave like an adult, right? That is a panty dropper for me. I go, oh, fuck, I like you. How you doing? You just did something that was hot as fuck, right? I kind of did that. He was a friend of a friend, and I had watched him kind of he was the non-consensual designated driver babysitter of me and a group of friends. He'd kind of shown up late to the party and was unfortunately turned into the stunningly sober one who kind of had to be the grown-up for this particular situation.
That poor individual.
Yeah. And I watched him kind of nod his head a little bit, walk around, check on everybody, talk to people. He got the notice that he was going to be the sober one kind of when it was too late for him to leave. And he was like, okay. So I watched him kind of stomp around a little bit. Like he was mad. He was upset. He was frustrated. This is not a cool thing to do to somebody, right? We were all invited to the party. The rest of us just showed up an hour before he did. And woo, And so I watched something kind of shitty happen to him. I didn't do this to him, but his friend who invited him to this party basically turned him into the babysitter for the evening.
He got baited into it.
And I could see that he was pissed off, angry and frustrated and pissed off. And I watched him he didn't stomp, but he agitatedly walked around for a little bit, stepped outside, and then he just got his shit together, right? He just kind of came back in and was like, all right, fine, and came back in and had a good time, was positive, engaged with everybody, but also kind of did do the babysitting. He was the sober one for the rest of the evening into dawn. Poor guy, and I was just fascinated with him. I was like, hey, that was amazing. But I was also kind of drunk. And so I said, wow, that was pretty hot. You got really pissed off. So those words came out of my mouth. And he was like, okay. I was like, no. That was, yeah. And he was like, yeah. So I, felt like I wasn't accurately communicating. So I'm pretty sure I maybe popped up right next to him several times throughout the evening, repeating such, yeah, you were super pissed. That was awesome.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching that plane go down right
now.
God.
Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know what to say. My face is bright red. I can tell it is right now. The thing is that I still do really like him. And the more I got to know him, and there were other times, I had been around him when I was not inebriated and he had not been kind of, shanghaied into this bad situation. My taste was not wrong. That is a personality trait that he continues to have. He is very emotionally competent. And
that is incredibly attractive.
Mm-hmm. I did wind up somewhat successfully flirting better later on, but that was not an excellent.
Yeah, so that first impression was like, I'm going to sit there, douse this in kerosene and light this on fire multiple times.
I remember asking him about it later, and he said, I really got the feeling you were mocking me. He's like, that's what I felt like. He's like, I felt like you were just sort of mocking me and kind of making fun of me, and that was what you were doing. And I was like, well, fair. That seems like an accurate interpretation of my behavior. I was like, no, I just kind of really, really liked you. He was like, oh, yeah, that got lost in translation. I was like, yeah. Booze is bad.
I'm just going to light this bag of doggy dude on fire at your door. I like you.
You were super pissed off, and that was awesome.
Here's some flaming poop.
Yeah. So there you go. Thank you for that. I can't believe I said that out loud.
You're welcome.
I've never told anybody that story. Shh, it's fine. I mean, I could ask I want to hear your story of that similar version, but I think I want a more different, uncomfortable question. Where did you learn to flirt? Or when did you realize that it was a switch you could turn on and off?
Oh my God, that's easy.
Really?
I was 5.
Oh my God. You remember you were 5?
Yeah.
All right. Tell me more.
When I was 5 years old, I was adorable, cute as a button, big brown eyes, long eyelashes, cute little auburn hair.
Redhead, ginger, no soul.
Yes. No soul, everybody. But anyhow, I learned at a young age what eye contact meant, what smiles meant, how to talk to people at a very young age. Let's call this what this is. This was child manipulation.
I mean, all children do that, right?
All children would do that, but not as good as I could do it.
So you noticed that you were just better at it than others?
I could melt a whole room. This also goes, and I hate to say this, I give my credit to my mother, who was a borderline sociopath, where she trained
I think
me.
borderline isn't that diagnosis. Not sure sociopath is.
I know borderline diagnosis. I've seen the paperwork.
So you give credit to your borderline mom.
Give credit to my borderline mom about being the cutest person in the room.
Aww.
I knew it. It's because I was told that every day. And when you're a child, you believe everything. And I learned that by smiling, by being close to somebody, batting your eyes and all that other fun stuff, and making solid eye contact and letting that twinkle come on, you can have the world in front of you.
All right. Follow up uncomfortable question. You seemed much too pleased with that one. It didn't seem uncomfortable enough. When have you ever used such natural power? What's the right word? Aggressive isn't the right word, but against the opposite sex, right? In a sort of self-serving manner. Did it ever go into a self-serving manner? You're flirting?
We just had this conversation prior to this. It's like, absolutely. Like I said, I flirt with everybody. It's part of my personality. It's part of who I am. And like I said, I'll flirt with a bartender. I'll flirt with a cocktail waitress. I'll flirt with my coffee cart guy.
Uber driver.
My Uber driver.
Belly
my
driver.
cab driver.
Yeah. Checkout cashier.
Yeah, it's like
stock
anybody.
boy.
Because I like it when I hit that connection, when that smile happens. Yeah, it's absolutely self-serving for me. Most people that are flirting, they're trying to get in somebody's pants. I'm trying for that first reaction.
Kind of like a comedian, right? Waiting for that first laugh, right? It's a dopamine hit.
Yeah, it's an absolute dopamine hit for me. It's one of my favorite dopamine hits.
Is there a dark side to this particular superpower? Dopamine seeking behavior?
Yes, there is. Absolute dark side. Because I am a shameless flirt to my own detriment.
All right, so I don't understand.
Well, when you're in a relationship with somebody and you're flirting.
Ooh, okay. Well, what does...
And again, like I said, it's to my own detriment.
Okay,
Because there's sometimes it's so natural that I don't realize I'm doing it until it's too late.
Really? Is that true?
Because it's automatic for me. You said earlier, like you've watched me do it.
I have, but I also kind of have the sense that you can turn it on and turn it off. But is it perhaps not that fine-tuned of a tool in that sense?
It's fine-tuned as a tool, but it's like an addict chasing a high.
Ah.
I will take that feeling over any drink, any drug, any experience, because it's something I can get almost instantaneously.
All right. Well, then I you've hit on something, right? When flirting is not this sort of feel-good exchange, when it becomes kind of a behavioral pattern for emotional validation, attention.
Yep. For emotional validation, like, because everybody wants the compliment.
Including you, right?
Including me. And I'll admit it, older I get.
I don't know. I mean, I know that this can be difficult in relationships, right? I think did we talk about cheating before, right? The idea that what is emotional cheating versus, like
in
physical
our
cheating.
last episode, my flirtation can be leaned on to the point where, it would be emotional cheating.
How do you know when that's lines being crossed? I can see how that's confusing. Like I have female friends, right, who if they saw you flirting with the bartender at our local bar, right, they would view it as an insult, right? You are insulting them to be flirting with another woman while out on a date with them, right? Flirting with another one right in front of them, right? There's some sort of insult there. I have known some of your past girlfriends who asked me about that, and I'm like, well, but he's always flirted with everyone. You do. You flirt with doormen.
I do.
They're like, no, it's not the same. And I'm like, well, then what's different exactly? But you're intimating that you kind of know when the flirting is different. Am I hearing you right? Or
yeah, it's like the flirting can be different because you're looking for emotional validation elsewhere other than the person you're with.
But so does everybody. But but
it's not just everybody. Where you're looking because you have a need or a desire or a hole to fill. Where you're looking for that compliment. You're looking for that validation, especially if you feel, even if it's misconstrued, that you feel in your own head, I'm not getting it where I need to be getting it, so I'll look elsewhere for it.
But that level of flirting, there is something different from like you flirting with the doorman and the stock boy, right? When you're doing that level of flirting, you're flirting with women, right? Or gay men, which means there's an element of sexual validation in it, right?
Yeah. The need to be
desired, right?
Desired, no one to be attractive.
Right. So, yeah.
Having someone look at you and go, hey.
Right.
And everybody knows that look.
Well, but then that changes the initial exchange, right? Because if that's the energy you're looking for, that is also means that's the energy you're offering at the beginning, right? Because you're usually the one naming the tune.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
Like Bonnie and I have both said, we're both proponents of therapy. This is something I've talked to a therapist about because I understand I have needs and desires that I want fulfilled at my own detriment.
Well, because it doesn't actually sound like it's fun then. It sounds like it's compulsive behavior, right? It's the same thing as hitting a line of coke or, shooting up some heroin, taking that shot of tequila. Like it becomes a compulsive behavior, essentially chasing a particular kind of emotional high that is a black hole of need, right? Okay. We're just going to connect the dots in this conversation, right? That at its core, this is a behavior that is supposed to be free, right? And easy and without an agenda. The dark road comes when your own motivations for it change, right? That seems like a real kind of hard nuance to kind of catch when it's happening. And I can see it'd be difficult you're a trained undercover narcotics officer with an awful lot of degrees in therapy. I could see how that kind of change in nuance would be difficult to notice in the moment.
And again, because of like what I've done professionally, candid honesty. And I know this is not saying nice things about me. I can wear any skin.
Yes.
I can wear any skin. I can read a room, walk in and be the person that room needs.
Yes. I have in the past pointed out that this makes you somewhat untrustworthy. I've also pointed out that I've been the same thing, a little bit less range and, the different people I can be. But, it's hard to trust chameleons.
It is. It's very hard to trust a chameleon.
So as a chameleon, you have to be trustworthy. You have to know you are. That's the difference, right?
But that's the thing. It's like something you can turn on. Building that rapport and making someone comfortable. I've always been good at it. I was trained from a child to do it.
Me too.
Like as my mom put it, she goes, for most kids, you never had that ugly stage. Thanks, Mom. But
I totally did, but that's a question. All right, well, let's wrap this back up. I so like how I get to ask follow-up uncomfortable questions. But what was your favorite crash and burn flirting story, Mr. Flirty McFlirt? I got PhD level in it. Flirt came by naturally. I woke up like this, right?
I don't look at it as crash and burning. I look at it as a learning experience.
All right, fine. Thank you, counselor. Go ahead.
This goes back to my early bouncing days when I was perfecting my craft.
Wait, is this in Ohio or in New York?
This is in Ohio. And it's also where I got my favorite insult line.
Ooh.
I was working at a teen bar in Southern Ohio. And they hired the larger boys. This is back in the 80s. They were paying us $5 an hour. So back in the 80s, $5 an hour is like making 20 now.
Decent money for a teenager.
Yeah, really good money for a teenager. And I was really good at diffusing situations and whatnot. And I remember I was flirting with my favorite cheerleader. I was turning on every trick I had, getting absolutely nowhere. Because at that time, I didn't understand having an agenda is bad.
Oh, it's nowhere near as hidden or as slick as you think it is.
Yeah, this is going back and forth, Rudy repartee. She goes, without missing a beat, totally stone-faced. She goes, you keep this up the way you're going, you're never going to get laid. You couldn't get laid in a women's prison with a presidential pardon in each hand.
Ouch. So that's where that line comes from. I've heard you say that a lot. Yeah. Ouch.
That's my favorite insult.
That's a good
thank you,
cheerleader.
Ginger.
That's a good cheerleader throwdown. I like it.
Yeah, that was an ultimate throwdown. And my ego was thoroughly thrashed and bruised that evening. Ouch. But honestly, at the end of the night, I was laughing about it just because it's like, wow.
That's such a great line, though.
It's a great line, but also learning that don't walk in thinking you're going to get anywhere. Just be you.
And read the room.
You get to ask up all the follow-up questions.
I know. That's the reason I ask you to do it first, and then I get to kind of go in there. It's almost like asking questions in my FBI interrogation bit. Where?
What?
I mean, people don't even notice until afterwards, where they're like, "Wow, I feel uncomfortably revealed." And like, you want to go on a date with me? And I'm like, no, I want to go in the corner and cry. But
I'm just going to go sit here and sob and hold myself and rock back and forth going, I told her all my secrets. I don't know why I'm crying. Oh, I'm going to go home now and watch Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I'm still single. It's a mystery to me. Shocking.
All right, everybody.
We love you.
We appreciate you. So, give us feedback at that wonderful email address that Bonnie knows.
info@drinkingwithyourx.com. drinking with your ex, spelled the way you think it should be. All correct English.
I am Blake Thompson.
I'm Bonnie Neal.
It's time for a refill, everyone. Thanks for listening tonight.
Y'all have a good night.